take a minute to describe yourself as a person and as a candidate, and why someone should support your campaign for president?
Well, I've got vast experience in the real world. In other words, I've been a businessman. I've been a airline pilot for 35 years for a major airline flying the Atlantic Ocean. I was the senior captain out of New York City's JFK for a major airline, and retired. And I've been in agriculture for years and years. I used to farm 4,000 acres. I still farm about 500 to 600 acres. And I've been involved in franchises. I've been involved in, well, at one time I was in the cement mason business, and another time I used to work for airline or railroads. As a young man, I was on the construction gang on railroad crews and highway crews. Other than being vastly experienced and very much aware of what's going on in the United States of America and the world today, being a world traveler like I was, I'm very much aware of how things are. So, if I was, I'm actually more interested in the U.S. Senate candidate than I am the presidency. But I'm actively soliciting from the Constitution Party a nomination for one office or the other, and of course the office would be for the state of Illinois if I was U.S. Senator, or if I was to get a campaign as a U.S. Senate for the U.S. Senate, it would be from the state of Illinois.
Okay, how do you differ from other candidates for the Constitution Party?
I'm not aware of what their positions are, so I don't know how I'm different, but I'm fully constitutional. In other words, I'm for the Constitution with its original intent. I don't believe in the living Constitution. I know that the Constitution means what it says, and it says what it means. And this idea about the living Constitution or being able to bend things around or going to the courts and having the judges legislate from the courts and do a different interpretation on what the Constitution says. I'm strictly United States Constitution in its original form.
Do you believe gay marriage should be legal or illegal, or what's your position on that?
I'm a one-man, one-woman believer. That's where my head stops at. I'm not. I don't approve of gay marriage. No.
Okay. What's your position on drugs and the legalization of them?
Well, for people that find relief for their pains and one thing and another, such as medicinal purposes, I have no problem with it for medicinal purposes. For recreational purposes, I think it's a one-way street to different drugs, and the more powerful the drug, that's a kind of a easy drug that they start with marijuana and then go up from there. But any kind of legalization of the illicit drugs, no, I don't think that's a good thing.
What is your position on abortion?
I'm solidly, unabashedly pro-life.
How do you suppose we solve the United States debt crisis with our national debt reaching $19 trillion recently?
Well, I'm on record as saying that the way to solve the debt crisis and the debt problem is to, of course, stop the profligate spending that the Congress does and the administration and the bureaucracies. However, all save for the what we call the Defense Department. I don't think we have strong enough defense, and I think that additional monies need to be spent for defense, but a lot of social programs need to be cut back. And when I say don't cut them out, I'm saying cut them back by 3% a year, and I think all federal government expenditures should be cut by 3% a year, and that would be with a legal mandate to do so, enacted by the Congress and signed into law by the President, so that we could that would not only stop the profligate spending, but it would start to reduce the debt. But more than anything else, it would give the people the confidence and the courage to know that something serious is being done about it. And it would encourage the private sector to move forward, and it would start to eliminate a lot of government programs. I'm talking about 3% a year for probably 10 years, compounded in reverse.
Okay, do you have a plan to stop ISIS?
Yes, we have to find a George Patton or a George Washington out there someplace in the armed services, and maybe a General MacArthur, General George Patton, General MacArthur, um, and send them over there and just annihilate them. They have to be taken out.
Should we continue with our drone strikes, or should we stop the drone strikes?
Drone strikes are all right. It's progress. I don't like this word. It's progressive as far as that aspect of it goes. In other words, it works. It has an effect, and anything that has an effect on these killers over there, we have to abide it.
Some people are worried about innocent people being killed in the drone strikes.
Oh, collateral damage, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, we have to hark back to World War II and World War One, and the bombers that took out Dresden, the bombers that took out London, the bombers that took out sometimes 100,000 innocent civilians in a night. And who can approve of that? Not me. But I do know one thing, that if it so happens that there is a war zone and we have some enemies out there who are willing to do anything from burning people in cages and chopping off heads at will and things. Oh, they just it's there's no words to describe the terror that these people do over there, and collateral damage, terribly unfortunate.
Okay, so a little bit about taxes. Do you support a flat tax?
I do.
Okay, this might be a silly question to ask a constitutionalist, but what do you believe about gun control?
About gun control?
Yes.
That's easy. I'm for the Second Amendment. As it says, it's very plain, it's very simple. It says, right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be abridged.
How far would you go with that? Because some people are afraid if very dangerous weapons were in the hands of the people, bad things could happen. So, is every weapon allowed?
Oh, no, I don't believe that we ought to have civilians running around the highways with armored tanks and bazookas and things like that. No, that's got to be curtailed.
Okay, so that's probably the only extent it would go to.
Yes.
Okay. What role should the federal government have in ensuring environmental safety?
Well, I would say that there is, it's got to go into the second position. It can't be the primary position. The primary position that we're operating on now is, and the primary activities that we're putting it first and foremost in so many different ways, in so many different cases, but it's ruining the economy. And if you ruin the economy, then you want to see what kind of pollution you got. I mean, you'll have riots in the streets even possibly. So if the pollution that we're worried about today from the environmental aspect of things would be minuscule if in fact we destroy the economy, and the current track that we're campaigning on now has got every possibility, or it's actually destroying the economy as we speak.
Do you think the bailing out of the banks was a good thing or a bad thing?
Too big to fail, too big to jail. It's a serious matter. Too big to fail. Has its merits. Not too big to jail. They aren't too big to jail. They should be jailed. A good share of those people that were involved in that type of thing. But that's a contradiction. I understand that. But the other thing about it is it's too bad that we ever got into that position to begin with. How did we get steered into that position? How did we arrive at that point? That's the problem. The problem wasn't the solution for the problem. The problem was that we got into the situation and we were allowed to get there. There's too many brilliant people around to have allowed us to get there. So how did we get there? What happened? What went wrong? How could we have arrived at that point? And how and it's dangerously close to going back there again.
What is your opinion on universal health care?
Very expensive, very, very, very expensive, and it's to be another entitlement. And entitlements are very, very ruinous. In other words, these entitlements are not, even though they're in progress, and even though it looks like the people who are receiving the entitlements are happy, but the people that are going to have to follow us, our posterity, when the nation is broke because of entitlements, not such a good thing. Bad thing. My lifetime, there were no entitlements like that, and the country got along fine.
How would you work on stopping welfare fraud?
Jail, indict, and try to convict anybody that was guilty of fraud associated with governments, one thing or another, ought to be jailed for a long time. A big time deterrent. You got to put a big time deterrent in there so that nobody even thinks about wanting to do it.
If you were in President Obama's current position, would you nominate a new Supreme Court justice as a successor to Justice Scalia, or would you wait for the next president to nominate?
I would, if I was President Obama, I would nominate someone right away, but I'm not President Obama, so that would, if I was in his shoes, no, I would not. I would not nominate anyone. There's only 300 days left before his term expires, and it's not unprecedented in United States history to have the vacancies a lot longer than that. And then if you was to wait, whether it be me or President Obama, if you was to wait until the new president is elected, well, then that almost says that's the will of the people, instead of acting unilaterally. In other words, he'd act unilaterally at this point because he does not have a current mandate.
Okay. Do you have a favorite president or a president that is most like you in your beliefs?
Well, of course, nobody could compare me with anybody else, and I wouldn't dare to do so. But if I was to be able to put it like this, I think that the most recent president that I liked a lot was Ronald Reagan, of course. That's easy for me. It's easy for me to say. And, of course, then there was, down through the ages, down through the times, why, of course, there were several others, admirable people as well, such as Dwight D. Eisenhower, such as certainly Abraham Lincoln. And you could name several.
Is there a current candidate for president other than yourself that you identify most with?
Well, there's the Donald Trump situation, and if he was for real, I would say that I would say that he's probably our best hope, if in fact he's true blue.
So you agree with Trump that we should build a wall?
Absolutely.
If you win the nomination and Trump wins the nomination for the Republican Party, why should somebody vote for you over Donald Trump?
Well, the hope would be that they would hear my message more than vote for me. In other words, the message would be to enhance what Trump is saying and say, okay, well, then let the voter decide who the best one to implement it would be. Whether it would be me if I had a nomination. But again, I say I'm probably not a presidential candidate. I'm probably more like U.S. Senate candidate, I would say.
Okay. So if you win the Constitution Party nomination, what is your plan to get your message out there so people can hear about your message?
Have to go through the social media, the conventional media. There's all of the insiders that are already in play, and they're not going to give anybody else a chance. In other words, the media, the popular media today, except for there's a few commentators out there that's not totally anti-conservative. But you would have to do it through social media, and it'd have to be a grassroots effort. Grassroots effort would have to take hold.
Okay, well, thank you, Chad. I think that'll wrap up the interview.
I appreciate that very much, and I thank you for this interview.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.